Okay, so in this video I'm going to be knapping some stone that a friend of mine named Vince sent me a long time ago, and mixed with these different pieces of stone from California, he put in some pieces of raw Alibates from Texas, and I believe there's some flakes in here that I was removing from some of the nodules that he sent me. I think this might be Alibates as well, or something similar. The stone itself is agatized dolomite. I'm not sure what that means, but it's not that easy to knap, although many artifacts were made from it, and it seems like a lot of Native Americans favored this material for some of their tools, especially from what I've seen in collections. There's woodworking tools and even arrow making tools made out of Alibates. And the reason why I say they're arrow making tools is because some of them have a concave section knapped out of a biface that looks like it's some kind of a spoke shave. And I've seen a few of those in person, and they look like tools. They certainly do look like tools. Now, Vince, if I don't cover all the stone you sent me, just let me know. I'm not sure. I think I've mixed it all together in this batch, but there may have been another batch. So if you're watching, just leave a comment and let me know that if this is the only stuff you sent. I may have another batch of it laying around that's unmarked. I've got a couple batches that are unmarked. But anyway, I'm going to try to make some points out of these pieces of Alibates. One of the reasons why it's hard to knap is because it's very brittle. It's got some nice coloration to it, but it can be unpredictable. There are some good areas and bad areas within the stone. If you heat treat it, it becomes a lot easier to knap, and some of it becomes extremely high grade material. But in the raw state, it's kind of brittle and a real challenge to knap. So let's see, I'm going to break this nodule open and see what it looks like. Yeah, this one's got a lot of natural seams. And I'm not sure if this came with the batch you sent me, but I did find it close by, so hopefully it's part of the batch. Let's see. Now, I've heard nodules of this size are pretty common in the area where you find Alibates. And of course, you can't harvest it in the national park, but you can get some of this from adjacent areas around the park, and it's usually small pieces, relatively small nodules, because the Native Americans picked up most of the big stuff. It holds an edge extremely well, so it's excellent for tools in a raw state. Once it's heat treated, it's more like glass, and the edge is not as durable. But yeah, this is certainly Alibates. I might be able to get some points out of this, but I'll do that some other time when I can be more careful. For now, I'm going to try to knap this here. I think I started to before, or somebody did. So again, this is raw Alibates. Now some Cahokia points were made out of this, and Cahokia Mountains is quite a distance from North Texas, from the panhandle of Texas. But they did transport Alibates quite a ways. It's been shown by analyzing the Alibates that it does originate in the panhandle of Texas, and it made its way all the way to Cahokia Mountains for some of the Cahokia style arrowheads. That's how prized it was for the coloration and the, I guess, the luster of the stone. Even with a lot of patina on it, it's still relatively shiny. Now I use this, zigzag technique to reduce a lot of these nodules and blocky pieces of stone. And some of you guys might be wondering if this was actually used by the Native Americans. Was this a tactic used by them to remove square edges? And yeah, it was. I've got an artifact, and this is kind of a teaser for the next video. I've got an artifact that has some of that flaking on it. They started to retouch. This is an actual artifact. Now it snapped during production. At some point during the manufacture of this biface, and the napper was starting to zigzag that square edge, and for some reason just left it or discarded it, maybe dropped it during that process and knocked off some of the edge or whatever. But yeah, they used this zigzag technique in ancient times, I think, whenever they encountered a square edge like this. I think it was pretty common. Now this will have to be done with a pressure flaker or a punch, unless you're extremely accurate with a hammerstone, which is also possible. This could have also been done with a lot of accuracy and a hammerstone that's relatively small to get in there and hit those platforms. But anyway, yeah, that technique was used, and I'll show that biface in an upcoming video. I'll probably make that video today and upload it, close to the uploads on these Alibates videos, and I'll discuss, edge quality on real artifacts, and see if I can reproduce some of the edge types that I see on actual artifacts. Anyway, that's just a teaser. Okay, so I've got to be very careful with this stuff. Like I said, it's very brittle, and this kind of thing happens really often. So instead of having a nice round or smooth bulb of percussion, there's a lot of cracks going in the wrong direction. I'm not sure exactly what those cracks are called, or if there's even a name for those that radiate out from the point of impact, that are usually in the opposite direction or perpendicular to the bulb of percussion. Now, hard hammers leave a very deep bulb of percussion in most cases. So you can, if you see it on an artifact like that, it's pretty much a hammerstone strike. You can do that with a soft hammer, but they're not as common as with a hard hammer. And of course, these copper punches are a hard hammer, or they're like hard hammers. These hard copper punches, very similar to using a hard hammerstone. Okay, so I'm going to switch to a smaller flaker. This piece is actually not bad. I'm not seeing many seams inside the material or internal cracks, so I'm pretty happy about that. A lot of times you'll find cracks on the inside, and when you heat treat it, it just blows up or cracks even more along those seams. Let's see. Let's go to a 1/4 inch first, and then maybe we'll go down to the 5/32 in a minute. So this is actually a pretty nice piece of Alibates. But it would nap a lot easier if it was heat treated. And at this stage I can, if I wanted to heat treat it, I would probably put it in there at this stage. This thickness and this size gives me a lot of options on different point types. Some points are actually pretty thick in the archaeological record, believe it or not. I think a lot of you guys that do artifact hunting have a bunch of so-called thick and crude points in your collections. And they're actually very common. Probably more common than the thin artifacts that everyone raves about. Not that thin artifacts are not fun to copy, because they are much more fun to copy, I think, than the thick ones. and this creates a really nice edge. Not all material will knap like this to where you can create a nice, almost a hollow ground looking edge. The whole, you know, the workpiece is not really thin enough to show it, but you can kind of see it, how it's developing, how thin that edge is. It's a pretty strong material even at a very thin stage. So this is probably the easiest type of rock so far in the rock challenge that I've knapped. Okay, if you're wondering what types of points were commonly made out of this material here out west, there were many Washita points and Carlsbad points made from this material. Carlsbad being a atlatl point from the Archaic period, and Washita is an arrow point. A true arrow point. We'll see how this goes. If it ends up being, you know, fairly wide, I might just make a Carlsbad out of it instead of whittling it down to a Cahokia size arrowhead. But it depends on how well I can thin it down and how much room I have. Getting a little nervous with this larger flaker because I have had Alibates snap on me before unexpectedly, so I think I'm going to go down to a thinner flaker, thinner diameter. That way I'm not using so much force on this. Yeah, I was afraid of that. Okay. See, once you start getting thin, you know, this material will spoil you, and you can run nice long flakes, but then you start applying a lot of force to the edge to run these long flakes, and you get these bites taken out of the edge. Because the material is kind of brittle. This thing is easy to lose. I had a question also on how I make these. This is a domed pad that I use. I had a larger one, but I gave that one away. It takes me a little bit of time to make these, and this is just a piece of Osage orange wood, flat on one side and domed on the other side, and it's about a 4:1 width to thickness ratio. And then I glue a piece of what they call biker leather excuse me, on the top of this with contact cement, and make sure I press it all the way around so that the leather is domed also. And I'm using the biker leather down here as a backdrop, but you can buy big rolls of it. It's fairly thick. I think it's a 4-ounce or 6-ounce leather. I think I had some people asking me if this was rubber. This is not rubber, this is leather. And I never use a notched pad anymore. Should have had my tools ready before I started the video. Anyway, I use my domed pad whenever I think the workpiece is going to be very delicate. And I don't want to bridge it and snap it. And it does stop some flakes, But I can just hang it over the side and run flakes like that on the sides, not directly where it's touching the domed pad. But I'll run flakes that in there also. It depends on, if I don't want them to run long, if they don't have to run long, I'll just not pay attention and not worry about where the workpiece rests on the pad. But if I have to run a long flake, I won't even use pressure. I'll just use indirect. That way I can hold it out here and run the long flake out here. Is that still? Somehow the focus looks off. Anyway. I'm just cleaning it up for another thinning pass. Because the edges have to be, you know, pretty beefy for these thinning flakes, or I'll continue to get those bites taken out of the sides. I don't want those. I'd rather lose a little bit of width than in a large area than a lot of width in a small area. Still plenty big for a Cahokia or a Carlsbad arrowhead, or a Washita. A Washita is very similar to a Cahokia, whereas a Cahokia usually has a notch in the base. The Washita usually has a concave base instead of that notch, but the side notches are very similar. Sometimes that neck between the notches can be extremely narrow on the Washita points. Even more so than on the Cahokia. Okay, so that's 28 minutes. I'm going to cut the video off here and then restart it.